Okay, YouTube, welcome back to Justice with Ken. Today we're going to be talking about how I even started or why I sued the first person I sued, the first company that I sued. And so it began with I used to sell on, I can't really disclose their name, but I'll just say I used to advertise on Craigslist and I sold a lot of products. And then one of the products I sold was through a company. And when I sold that product, this allowed the person to get a 2012 MacBook Pro and they exchanged it for a 2010 MacBook Pro. And when they did that, um, it essentially robbed me of my product. The I had a 90-day warranty on the item, and the guy, I asked the guy, told the guy if he had any problems, just contact me. And so he never contacted me. He opened up a case, and then they eventually ruled in favor of that guy. So I was pissed. I I did everything. I looked here, I looked there. I tried to call different attorneys, and nobody would take the case. And so because I worked at home, I looked up. I was always looking, looking at that company's name, trying to see if there was a way I could actually find a way to sue them. And so what happened was there was a 423 exchange number, and I called it. And when I called, it was an attorney's office in California. And so basically, what the attorney's office in California told me, they said, "Oh yeah, we're familiar with that." I explained my scenario and what happened and what they said and they said, "Well, you know, um, we have a class action against that company." I said, "Well, can I get in on the class action?" They told me no because it was only for California. But then they came with the idea that I could sue that company. I'm like, "Well, I can sue that company." I said, "But they're in California." He asked me, "Do they do business in your state?" I said, "Yes, they do." He said, "Well, if they do business in your state, then you can sue them." And I'm like, "Wow." I said, "Okay." So I looked up the company's address and I sued them in small claims court, or general sessions court as is sometimes called. It took about a month, where they serve, had to process and send the mail to the thing. And then the company called me. Uh, well, the company's attorney had called me and they wanted to settle with me. At that time, I was really more pissed about the whole aspect because at one point, me and the company, we were doing about 3,000 to close to $4,000 a month in business. And so I just couldn't fathom the idea that they would not protect me as a valued customer. So as we go on, um, I make my first appearance, and then the first appearance is setting up for the trial for the next appearance. And so on the next appearance, when I go there, the judge, he calls me up, and then the attorney's there, and the attorney says, or the judge says, "Mr. Merritt, I don't think you sued the right people." I said, "No," he said, "actually," he said, "I don't think you serviced the right people." I said, "Well, how can that be?" I said, "The attorney, they're sitting right there." He said, "Yeah," he said, "but when you sue a company, you have to send it to the proper channel, and then they distribute it to the company, and then they can answer. Because you sued a company and you didn't send it to the designated person, the suit didn't get serviced properly." He said, "So I'm going to go ahead and dismiss your claim, but you have to service the company properly before you can actually sue them." I'm like, "Okay, all right, thank you, sir." So I went, I looked, I'm trying proper service. I'm doing all this looking. I couldn't find anything to tell me who I was supposed to sue. So I went back and I found the number for that 423 exchange number for the attorney in California. And they answered, and I told them, I said, we talked and I gave you some of my information, but they're saying I need to service the right. They said I didn't service the right person. He said, "Oh, that's called a registered agent." He said, "Whenever you sue a company or a LLC, you have to service them through the LLC." I like, "Oh, well, thank you so much." So then I found who the registered agent was, and I sent it to them. It came back, and then we got another court date. So this is my second appearance. So after about a month and a half, we got the court date. We went to court. And then on the first time, we make the appearance as always. And the second time, again, the judge stops. He says, "Well, Mr. Merritt, I don't think you sued the right people." I said, "Well, what do you mean? I mean, they're here. I served the right registration." He said, "I know, but you sued the CEO, the CFO, and the COO." And I kind of smiled to myself, and he said, "Well, when you sue the company, you only sue the company unless those individuals that you sued are part of the lawsuit. You don't include them, you just sue the company." I'm like, "Oh," he said, "for that reason and that reason alone, I'm going to dismiss your claim, but I'm going to dismiss it without prejudice. And then that way you can bring it back up." I'm like, "Okay." So now that's the second time I've sued the company. So the third time, I got everything right. I sued just the company, and then I sent it to the registered agent, and we're ready. I got a court date. Would you believe I missed the court date? I had four of the lawsuits that I had going at that time. And so we were kind of negotiating, and I was a couple of hours late. So I missed the lawsuit date, court date. And so little did I know that I could have just went down there and they would have rescheduled it, but I didn't know that. So, it was how you say, that's trial and error. And so I learned. So that was my third time. So on my fourth time, believe it or not, my fourth lawsuit. So each time, I filed all these court. So I filed four different court filing fees and four different, service or process fees. So I did all those. And now we're ready. And we went to court the first time, and then before we could even go the second time, the attorney called me. He said, "Hello, Mr. Merritt, how are you doing? See, you're having problems with the company." And the company said, they would like to know what it would cost to make you go away. I like, "Make me go away? What does that mean?" They like, "What?" They said, "You keep suing them." I said, "Well, I was trying to learn the process and I couldn't figure out the process. So once I got it figured out, that's why we went ahead." They said, "Well, anyway," they said they hate for you to keep suing them. And so they want to know what it would cost for you to leave and let it go." And I said, "Well, that's messed up." I said, "All I was mad about was because they allowed somebody to steal something from me." They said, "Mr. Merritt, we understand. What would it cost?" So, I was really a little pissed. So I said, 5,000. They're like, "Oh no, Mr. Merritt, I don't know if we can get that much." I said, "Okay, well, 4,000. He said, "Okay, well, we'll try to work with that." So a day passed. And so the next day they called me and they said, they're willing to sign that. So what we're going to do is we're going to send you out a gag order. Now, I'm sure you already know what a gag order is because I did a video on that. And if you'll look right here, you should see about gag order, and then you'll know what that is. But a gag order is essentially just saying that I won't disclose what they paid me and how much they paid me, and I won't out the company. So that's how I actually got started doing that whole process. And it allowed me to get stronger because it took me almost a year of going back and forth with the whole process before I finally got it where I consider myself, I mastered that aspect of it. So, what you didn't know yesterday about why I sued, you know today. Thanks, YouTube, and I'll talk to you again. Ken out.